What's up, YouTube? Back again with another video. Brian here. Shout out to all my rod snobs. Got another high-end fishing rod review for you again today. Today we're going to talk about the Megabass US Destroyer Otomat. So first off, if you are into high-end rods, especially high-end tackle, click the subscribe button because I got more stuff coming out. I got a lot more high-end rods, especially Megabass and some other stuff that we're going to review soon. And my 2020 Rod and Reel Arsenal video is going to be dropping soon, so please hit like and subscribe if you're one of the connoisseurs of fine high-end fishing equipment, or even if you're just curious about this kind of stuff. So, alright, that going forward, we're going to talk about the Megabass Destroyer Otomat. Now, I used this rod all last year. Flashback to before this came out, everybody kind of considered the Otomat, I'm sorry, the 110 Special as the top water rod in the Destroyer lineup. So if you're looking at US Destroyer rods and you're really a top water guy, you kind of always lean towards the 110 Special. So it's like a jerkbait slash top water rod. It was like that typical 610 medium action rod that kind of is dual purpose. Now Megabass, when they announced the new Destroyer rods coming into last year, they said, oh, we got a new topwater rod coming out. And I got really excited because I'm a hardcore topwater addict. It's like one of my favorite techniques. So I was very excited. And then I saw the specs on this rod when it dropped, and I was like, that's weird. That's interesting, because it is a 4.5 power, which is the exact same power as the 110 Special, and it's longer. This is a 7.1. So I was like, okay, they took the 110 jerkbait special Destroyer rod, they made it a little longer, but they kept the same power. And I was like, okay, I thought it was going to be a little lighter or something and a little shorter. But so anyway, Megabass totally went away from what I was expecting them to come out with. But I still ordered one because I can't help myself, and if Megabass comes out with something for top water, I'm going to try it because I love top water. So what makes this rod different than the Vision 110 jerkbait special Destroyer rods? It's all about the action, and the design of the blank is completely different, even though it doesn't seem different, but it is. So I use this rod all year. This rod excels at walking baits, so like your Diamante, any of your Dog X's, any kind of walking spook style topwater bait, this is fantastic at. Also a killer popper rod. I know you don't really need a special rod for throwing poppers because you kind of throw it out, you twitch and you wait, and you twitch and you wait. But if you throw poppers that also walk really well, like a Pop Max or a Rico or a I don't know, any of the number of like good poppers that can walk, this is good for that. Also, this can be used as a jerkbait rod. So if you don't want to get the 110 Special and you want to do more topwater but also be able to throw jerkbaits, this thing can totally 100% throw jerkbaits. Big Bass Dreams Oliver, he has a whole video where he just used the Otomat to throw jerkbaits on, and is an extremely capable jerkbait rod because of the soft action of the blank. So how did I use this rod all year? I had it paired up with a Lew's Tournament Pro LFS, so it's the new version of the Tournament Pro, and I made a lot of experiments over the years of what type of line setup to use for topwater, and I've kind of landed on this one, and I'm probably going to run like this the next couple of years because I really liked it. And that is running braid. So I have 30-pound Power Pro braid to a fluorocarbon leader, but only a leader that's about a foot long. So I went from braid to a FG knot to about a foot long fluorocarbon leader to a snap. So I use a regular snap so I can quickly change out my topwater baits. And it gives the topwater baits a little more action because it's not tied to the line tie. You don't have to do a loop knot. Loop knots are kind of weak. So I go right from braid, FG knot, fluoro leader. I think I'm running 10 to 12, actually 12. I think I have a 12-pound fluoro leader to a snap. Now everyone's like, oh, fluoro leader, it's gonna sink. A small fluoro leader does not sink. It floats right on top of the surface. Your bait will not drop down. It's perfectly fine. What's cool about running the fluorocarbon leader with the topwater setup is it gives you a little shock absorber, and it gives you a little more abrasion resistance if pike hit it. Gives you a shock absorber, and it's invisible or whatever. But it's a really good setup, and I'm going to be running the braid to a small fluoro leader for this foreseeable future for my topwater applications. I used to run mono, I used to run poly or copoly. I've tried all the different line setups, but this is great because it casts so far. You can really launch a bait. Oh, that's the other reason you want a fluorocarbon leader when you're running topwater, is because it won't follow up the line inside your hooks like if you go to straight braid. So if you throw like a big diamante with straight braid, that line can get wrapped into the hooks, and then you got to reel it back in, untie it, throw it again. Running a fluorocarbon leader will really stop that from happening, because the fluorocarbon leader will be kind of stiff and the bait will cast really, really far. I can launch pop maxes with this thing. It is so fun. Anyway, so let's talk about the rod. So like I said, the rod's a 7-1. It's the same 4.5 power as the Vision 110 Special. Now, really where this rod sets it apart is when we do the bend test later. I'm going to show you, because it's really hard to explain the nuances between this and the 110 jerkbait special, but there is a big difference. Now, this rod is the softest rod in the entire US Destroyer lineup. Now, I haven't tried all the JDM destroyers, but of all the US destroyers, if you want the softest, most parabolic rod in the entire lineup, for right now, it is the Otomat. The action on this rod is awesome. This thing loads all the way down, this thing bends all the way down to the last guide. When you are working a bait, you have a lot of action in this rod to slap and get a good walking motion going on the on your topwaters. But when you hook a fish and you load up on them, this whole rod goes whew, like, I mean, the bend goes all the way, the backbone doesn't hit to like here. I mean, that's how soft this rod is, which makes it really easy to cast bait. So long distance, you get a really good cadence going with your bait on this rod, and then when you hook a fish, you rarely lose them because this rod has a lot of give. It's just really fun to use. It's very unique. I don't know of any other rods that I've tried that are topwater rods that have anywhere near the kind of action that this rod has. It's super weird and super interesting. I don't know what Megabass did to blend the carbons down to get that kind of just smooth. It's almost like a crankbait rod. Honestly, you could probably use this rod perfectly fine for throwing like square bills. It's got that really long, swooping parabolic action like you'd find in a crankbait rod. However, it's all carbon, no glass in this thing. So Megabass did a knockout job on this thing. It's got your typical destroyer fit and finish like any other destroyer. It's got the typical not so great, kind of cheap cork. So be sure to seal this thing if you don't want filler coming out, because this is not a high-end cork. The balance on this thing is fantastic. It's super lightweight. The handle is longer than the 110 Special. The 110 Special has a slightly shorter, more nubby handle, so you can work the top down. So downsides of this rod, I really can't think of any outside. It is a little longer. It's a 7-1, so if you're used to topwater rods that are shorter and you're a shorter person and you're fishing off the front of the boat and you don't want your tip to slap into the water, this rod might be a problem for you because it is 7-1. So if you can stand working a 7-1 topwater rod tip down, then this thing's going to be great. So if you're curious why you would need this rod, if you're into the Destroyer line and you already have a Vision 110 jerkbait special, I would say there's not enough differentiation on this rod to move away from using the jerkbait special as a topwater rod. If you already have the jerkbait special, the 110 Special, you don't need this rod. However, if you're looking at that, but you'd really like to do topwater more than throw jerkbaits, I would pick this one up. So I would say Vision, the 110 Special is awesome at jerkbaits, pretty good at topwater. This one is awesome at topwater, pretty good at jerkbaits. So it depends on what you're going for. So let's just jump right over to the action tests, because that's where the characteristics of this rod really shine. So let's jump over to that right now. All right, so let's talk about the action on this rod. So here is the Otomat in my left hand. Here is the 110 Special in my right hand. Now this rod is an F4.5 power, and it's a 611. This is an F4.5 power 7-1. So the 110 Special is a more compact jerkbait rod. It's meant to fish straight down, tip down. It's got a shorter handle, so it's a more compact rod. Now the Vision 110 Special has a very soft action up until about here. The backbone kicks in at about this guide, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So about the 7th guide down is where the backbone hits on the 110 Special. Now the backbone on the Otomat hits right here. So the 110 Special, I'd say the power of the rod kicks in about here. The Otomat goes all the way down to the very last guide into the main part of the shaft right before the grip. Totally different. But the tip on the 110 Special is actually kind of soft, or softer than the Otomat. So this is going to be really hard for me to explain. The nuance on this is very interesting, but I'm going to try my best to use words. And visually it's going to be kind of tricky to see. So I'm going to pick it up at the high in the tip, and we're going to see that the 110 rod, which is the, I'll put the 110 on the outside. Okay, so this is the 110 Special, this is the Otomat. Now when I just lift them up from the tip, the Vision 110 is actually going to be softer. So I'm going to go up from here. I'm going to do this right about here. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but the 110 Special is actually dropping lower than the Otomat. The 110 Special has a super soft tip. It's why everyone loves it as a jerkbait rod. So it's got a really soft tip for putting really big like slap action into your jerkbaits. So as of right now, on the tip section, the 110 is slightly softer. But as we move down the blank, and we move, right now they're pretty close to even. So I moved my hand down about 4 or 5 inches, and right now they're action-wise they're about even. But I can see visually right now that we're starting to get into the backbone of the 110, but the Otomat is still very, very curved. I know you probably can't see that from this far away on the camera. I apologize, but trust me on it. So now we're going to move down even further down the blank. We'll go down another set of guides. And if you notice, now the Otomat is starting to drop lower than the 110 Special. Now what that means is that the parabolic bend goes from the very tip of the Otomat all the way down the blank, whereas the 110, the parabolic bend ends at about, I don't know, probably where my finger is right here. So now as I move down even a little more, now the Otomat is definitely lower than the 110 Special. It's really hard to see this because I wish I had a little more weight down at the handles, but trust me when I say that the Otomat has a much longer bend down the shaft than the 110. So that's why this is such an interesting, unique rod. It's almost like a crankbait rod made out of carbon. It's almost like a glass crankbait rod, but a carbon rod. So I don't know if you guys can see that right here, but this bend keeps going all the way down to right here. I mean, it just keeps going. This is such a bendy rod, the Otomat. Now the 110 Special stops pretty cold turkey, dead stop about right here. So right where my fingers are is where it hits the blank and goes right into the backbone. So yes, on paper they're both the same power. They're a little bit in length and handle configuration, but the Otomat is way more parabolic, way softer. The Vision 110 is more of a fast action with a super soft tip. So it's a really hard decision which one to go with. If you're a topwater guy, I would lean towards the Otomat. If you're a jerkbait guy, I'd lean toward the 110. But both of these rods can do topwater and jerkbaits. If you want, you can have them both, like I do, because I have a sickness. But I like the Otomat. I like the 110. They're both awesome rods. I think the Otomat is really unique because I can't think of very many rods that are similar to this. So it's kind of an oddball in the rod market. And it's definitely a unique rod in Megabass's arsenal. So if you want to pick up a rod that's kind of weird and unique and really, you throw a lot of topwater like Diamante, Dog X's, any kind of spook style baits, I always hit the ceiling with these, you're always going to love these things. You're going to love this Otomat. It's a really cool rod. I'm glad I have it. I love using it. It's my favorite. It's right in the morning, like right out on the lake, it's glass, sun's coming up, my Otomat is coming out with a popper. It's my favorite like first rod to use in the day, especially when it's slick calm out in the morning. Or at sunset. This rod comes out a lot at sunset to start throwing poppers and stuff. So anyway, that's what's going on with these rods. I hope this answers some questions if you are interested in looking at both of these. And my dog Finn is coming into the shot. Say hi, Finny. All right, take it easy, guys.